What's going on, people? How are things? How are things? I don't remember where we left off. Okay, well, this one doesn't even use it. Okay, that's can walk into water. That's a weird like one-off Boolean that will probably change. It's like it's a hack that I did to be able to build a couple levels, and we're probably not going to keep it that way. Having some tea? Yeah, I should have some tea or do something. Today went by very quickly, partially because I spent 3 hours of it doing an interview, which was fun. But it took a chunk out of the day. Okay, that was this thing. All right. Maybe expand ocean map. Yeah, that's something we're going to think about later. We're just doing the low-hanging fruit right now. Falling rate. Great. We're going to... That's like literally probably the only place in the program where this variable appears. What we're going to do, so the ocean map sort of just has a lot of different settings. So like global settings for the level. So we're probably going to make an entity called settings that has these things on it. And then we're going to do, we may not still do this tonight, but we're going to do a thing where we go through and create a settings entity for every single level. And copy the data from ocean map. Now I don't want to do that yet because it's most expedient if we just make sure that everything that should be on settings is. So I want to wait till we do this whole pass over the code and then see what those things are, and then we can attack that. Okay. Like literally most of the time when we say get ocean map, we should probably be saying get settings, honestly, because most of the time we don't actually want the ocean. So I could just do this now. And I could convert most of get ocean map to get settings. Honestly, though, I should just do that. I should throw that switch over the weekend. Because I don't want to have a lot of people editing the levels if I do like a global salvage process that runs over all the levels. What I can do in the meantime is just go through and turn the ones of these that want settings into just get settings. Just change the name of the function and like seriously not do anything else. That'll be more economical than what I've been doing. Right, so here, we're just going to do a thing called get settings that says return get ocean map manager, okay? That's what I should have been doing from the very beginning, honestly. And then the things that actually want the ocean, we leave as get ocean map. The things that want settings, we say get settings. For now, they're still the same entity. But then we run the thing that splits them, right? So this camera stuff, right? So we left some get ocean maps in here. And we're just going to change this to get settings. Get settings. All right. And oh, wait. That's a weird one. That has to do with oceans. This is going to change. I'm going to leave that be ocean. Okay. So there we go. And then instead of calling it ocean, and we're just lying, because right now it really is an ocean map entity, but later it'll be a settings entity. If I were to move someplace else, how do I find a place to live? I don't know. I mean, I think you want to scout out the area somehow. Maybe Airbnb or whatever. I mean, that's not how I did it when I moved to New York or Austin, but maybe I'm better at these things today. What are we programming? We are working on a game that is a puzzle game, and we're doing one of these things that happens sometimes where you decided originally that you just wanted one ocean entity, and now you want different ones at different levels, and you start making that possible. Right, so all this stuff, right, the fog values can be on settings. If we want to split those into a different thing later, we can do that. Wow, this is going to be so much easier. Why didn't I do this last night? Okay. Okay. Look at that. We're already down to one page. You did Airbnb while looking for a place in Chicago. Yeah. Well. Oh yeah, we left that one. This control prompt stuff. There we go. Okay. Great. We wanted this to be get settings. This is get settings. No, this is actually for water rendering. So we're going to leave that for now. Any milk yet? No. We've been really milkless. I'm just not that motivated to go to a store in California. Okay, they just released new guidance in California, and you're still not allowed to do anything but leave your house. And if you are outside your house, you have to wear a mask if you're within 30 feet of another human being. 30. So, But meanwhile, nobody's doing anything to actually solve the problem. So what's going to happen is, in a few days when my laptop gets here, I'm leaving California again. How do I have enough food? I bought a lot of food before all this started. Yeah, I recorded the interview locally because we worried that there might be internet problems. So I sent her the footage from my side, and so she could edit that in or whatever. Yeah, I've got frozen food, I've got canned food, all that stuff. I've got MREs. I haven't even opened the MREs except for one to test. Where do I think is a good place to go that's actually doing something to solve the problem? Japan, Korea, Singapore, take your pick. There's several places that have done a good job. And they all have different strategies. Do I have guns and ammo? Not presently, but I may soon. That's not really a kappa. Like, that's a reasonable question. What percentage of good coding work would I say is reactive versus proactive? I don't really know. I don't plan very carefully, honestly. But that doesn't mean that what I do is reactive exactly. I do things that are proactive a lot of the time, but they're not strictly planned, if that makes sense. Just go where you want and wear a mask when you get close to people or inside a business. Yeah, I mean, even that is not that necessary. Like, if you just had testing, like, just have testing, quarantining for people who are sick, and then take basic precautions, like, don't have crowded super spreader events. That would solve the problem. And we just seem unable to get our act together in that way. So I don't know, man. Come to Australia? I might. I mean, I've never been to Sydney. I've been to Melbourne and liked it. I don't know. Will Australia quarantine me if I fly there, or do I get to walk around? Need a kappa with a mask on. You have no idea why we still don't have enough testing, because our institutions are no longer really competent. Like, that's basically the reason. There's no other way to say it than that. Like, the machinery of state is not functioning in such a way that it's actually doing the job it's supposed to be doing. So, and if people want to get super political, they can blame that on the president. But the fact is, it goes way, way deeper than that. Like, I don't think it matters that much who is president in this case. Like, we would have screwed it up no matter what, because we lost. I would say we started losing the competence for this kind of thing probably in the mid to late 1970s, and it's just been a gradual slide. Two weeks? Oh man. That's pretty rough. I think I'll just visit around the US instead of going to Australia. I do want to go to Australia again. I haven't been there since like 2007. You watched her remove her mask to sneeze. Yeah, that's really bad. You don't think we don't have enough testing? We don't have remotely as much testing as the actual countries that have solved the problem. Like, we should be testing every citizen of the United States every week. That is how you solve this problem. If we did that, the problem would go away. Why haven't we done that? Yeah, Andrew Yang I would have voted for president. You blame Trump for the lack of testing? Well, he's certainly not helping. He's not helping solve any problems, but if the machinery of, like, the US government is huge. The branches of the government in charge of this stuff are huge and very expensive. And what are we paying all that tax money for if they're not going to handle this? Right? So lots of places report having 2 to 10x capacity for testing than they're getting. No, but you don't just leave it to people to randomly wander in for testing. You say, hey, it's a good idea the way that you're saying, hey, everybody wear a mask, just forget that. Just say, hey, you don't have to wear a mask if you get tested once a week. A lot of people will do that. You could give incentives. Say, hey, while we're mailing cash out to people, every week you get tested, you get $100, right? A lot of people would do that. We're not doing any of that, and well, the result is what we have, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Might not be able to get a flight until mid-June. Yeah, I got to wait for my laptop anyway, which gets here probably June 4 or 5, so I'm not going anywhere till that time. How does register command work? The metaprogram looks for functions that use this and says, hey, well, we notice that that has this tag on it, and then we just put it in an array and do stuff with it. What kind of laptop? A crappy one. I don't know of any good laptops, unfortunately. Insta-kill fog instead of remove fog. Yeah, it's called that because like normally fog like fades out as you expose an area. So it's just what I named it, man. Whoops, that's not all. That one, yes. That one, yes. That actually wants the ocean, which we're going to have to change how that works, but okay. See, there's just all these weird timers on the ocean map right now. And we're just going to move them to a different entity. That other entity doesn't exist yet. We're pretending it's on a different entity. And then later we'll stop pretending. Room highlighting, that's totally going to be settings. Okay. I'm just kind of doing the files in random order now. Okay, this is again settings. Falling, now we can actually do this. Because again, that falling rate, that's just a random settings variable. So this whole grid thing, I don't know if we're going to want to have a grid. I need to look at it. But we don't worry yet because it's just fiction. It's just fiction. Fiction. Okay. So this is the extents of the level, which is also going to be on settings. I guess we do want it to have a grid, if only for that. I'm getting hungry, everybody. Let's make sure we still compile. We haven't done that in a bit. All right. Oops. You can put in that tag and it'll be in the language that you can use. I'm not sure what you mean by it'll be in the language that you can use. I don't think I understand that question. Okay. We'll do the editor later. Oh, there's so much editor stuff. Let's look at undo. Ocean change. That stays ocean map, but yeah, this is going to have to change. All right, that later though. Okay. Simulate. Okay, this is about settings again. Like, you know what? Let's just call our barrier function. We don't need to use it. We could just do this settings thing, but because we made this barrier function, we'll just be consistent. I mean, maybe we should just take this out again and just have it be settings because I like that better, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal. All right. Well, it's getting shorter. Okay, this one we're going to use that barrier stuff for again. So we said underground is active. Skyground is active. Let's use the right variable name. Okay. Let's check ocean and make sure everything in there is for the ocean. Set ocean info. Get settings, get ocean map, get ocean info. That's all legit calls. Lilies and rivers, entity manager. Did we do that one? Maybe expand ocean map. Yeah, this is a weird one. That's a thing that we do later. I think this is probably all the non-editor stuff. Let's go back here, check this for a second. Now this should be settings. It's just we decided to skip this one before we came up with our settings plan. Okay. So next, I want to go through and do all these editor stuff. So basically, everything that's not in the editor up here is legitimately doing something with the ocean. Or like this one isn't quite, but like that's something we'll change when we decide how to do things. So now we got to do stuff down here, some of which will be ocean and some will be settings. And then we check it in. And then maybe we just throw the switch tomorrow night on this, which I'll probably stream that just to give closure to people who have been watching these bits. In the case where I was moving to settings to info, I missed one on the first. Well, we fixed that. It gave us a compile error and we fixed it. I did in fact mess it up. You are correct. But fortunately, we are using a programming language that tells us when we make that kind of mistake. When someone overloads operator times, is it a dot product or a pairwise multiplication? I do not overload operator times for vector arguments, exactly for that reason, because it doesn't really correspond to anything. I overload matrix times vector, right? And that's about it. Or matrix times matrix. That's what I meant by you should have discipline. You shouldn't just overload everything just because you can. Will I have to run a script to set the ocean levels for existing puzzles? I mean, we will just... So initially, all we're going to do is have exactly the same data that we already have, but copied over to a different entity. And we'll delete ocean maps that are invisible, I guess. Anyway, something like that. Or maybe, yeah, something. And then later, so that is something we can do, and then we make sure the game isn't broken and everything's happy, etc. And then we can start doing stuff like, you know, let's make it possible to have more than one ocean, you know, etc. What is wrong with operator star being component-wise? Because if you know linear algebra, that's not really a thing. Like, there are in linear algebra, you just can't multiply a vector by a vector. you can do what you're talking about component-wise is a thing called the Hadamard product, but it's like not a product in geometric algebra straightforwardly. Okay, you have to like, transpose one of the vectors and dot them to get that. Or no, not dot them, right? But do the dot product like thing, but you have to turn to get the Hadamard product in linear algebra. You have to diagonalize each matrix, or turn each vector into a diagonalized matrix, multiply the matrices, and then de-diagonalize it, right? Something like that. Now in geometric algebra, right, you get a different thing, right? So if I were to define actual vector product as something meaningful, I would do geometric algebra, right? So in geometric algebra, you have like AI plus BJ plus CK, that's a vector. Or let's call it A E1 plus B E2 plus C E3, right? And times X E1 plus Y E2 plus Z E3, where E1, E2, E3 are the basis vectors. And when you do this, you get exactly what you would get in algebra. You get AX E1 dot E1, which is 1, right? You get AX plus BY plus CZ, which is the dot product, right? Just from these terms being like, but then you get the cross terms. You get plus A Y E1 E2 plus A Z E1 E3 plus BX E2 E1 plus BZ E2 E3 plus CX E3 E1 plus CY E3 E2. That is what multiplication of a vector times a vector actually is if you're in a sane system. Now you may be looking at this and going like, what the hell is all this, right? Well, actually, so E1, E2 is a plane, right? E1, E3 is a plane. E2, E1 is minus E1, 2, right? E2, E3 is a plane. E3, E1 is minus E1, 3. And again, minus E1, 3, and this is minus E2, 3, right? And then you can combine the like terms here. So this is, I missed a plus here. Sorry, that's confusing. This is the dot product, right? That's a scalar plus AY plus, or AY minus BX E1, 2 plus AZ minus CX E1, 3 plus BZ minus CY E2, 3. Okay, hopefully I didn't make a huge mistake, but this might start to look familiar, okay? So this is the dot product, this is the cross product. So the actual product, if you multiply two vectors together, you get the dot product and the cross product as the output, okay? But this isn't exactly the cross product, it's the wedge product. This is actually a plane and not a vector, okay? And if you do things this way, math makes a lot more sense than if you do the traditional way, and is way more awesome. So, like, one of the reasons this is so freaking great is that it is exactly what you learn in grade school for multiplying algebraic equations, right? It's exactly the same. And that's also why it makes sense geometrically and is right. It's like so good. So that is what I would define multiply to be if I was doing geometric algebra in my game engine. But I don't tend to do geometric algebra in my game engine. I tend to do it on paper. So this part, if we say, if A is this, right? We're going to say capital A is that vector and capital X equals that vector, right? If that's the case, then A times X, like in linear algebra, you would use these to mean matrices, but like we don't have bold-faced lowercase letters right now, so we're just rolling with it, right? So this is, let's just say this is A, B, C. That's your more familiar notation, right? X, Y, Z. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. And then if you say A times X, it's this, all right, which factors to this, which by the way is, is A dot B. We're going to use that period for the dot product, right? Plus A wedge B, where this is the Grossman product, or the the geometric algebra. So the dot product sometimes is called the inner product, right? And this is sometimes called the outer. Well, there's an outer product of vectors that gives you a matrix. This isn't exactly that, but it's the same terms as the outer product. It's just in a different form. So this is like inner and outer in one package. But when I do linear algebra in my own engines, I have a function called dot product and a function called cross product. I don't use overloads for that. You've seen people overload caret for the wedge product. Unreal Engine does that. Well, Unreal Engine overloads caret for the cross product, I think, if I remember correctly. What properties does this multiplication have? Is it useful in any means? Yes. It is very, 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 very useful. Very useful. They never taught you the wedge product? Yeah, so physics is still very much linear algebra, but there are people who do this geometric algebra kind of stuff in physics. So for example, I think Carver-Mead was doing something where he reformulated electromagnetism using this kind of a thing, using quaternions, which are related to this, right? If you know quaternions in game engines, right? A quaternion is like, A I plus B J plus C K plus D, all right? This is actually, this IJK is the same as E1, E2, E3. And this D is just a scalar like you might have. So somebody asked, what's this useful for? What it's useful for is you can do math on vectors and get residues that aren't vectors anymore, but that make sense, that tell you things. You can get planes and volumes and scalars and stuff. And the reason we do E1, E2, E3 instead of IJK is because you might want to go out to many dimensions. And If you use a number to label your dimension, you don't ever run out of dimensions, right? Whereas if you're IJK, you start using up all these letters, and it's very confusing. Can you succeed in the game industry if the best you can do is fractions? I mean, there's a significant amount of programming where you don't really need to know math. However, it's going to limit you pretty severely. Of going out to many dimensions. What is an example of going out to many dimensions? Okay, well, for example, so you know, in regular, just regular old linear algebra rendering, there's this idea where you add a fourth dimension so that you can do perspective, right, in rendering. It's called homogeneous coordinates, right? So if you haven't heard of that, you can look that up. That we've been doing for many decades, right? There's kind of an equivalent thing in geometric algebra, but it's called, I don't remember the exact correct term, but it's like, it's the conformal map or conformal space or something. But basically, you add a dimension and you use that dimension to put a point at infinity. And then you can start, it gives you a much more uniform way of representing things, right? So you can have line segments, and if one of the points is the point at infinity, it's like a ray going in a particular direction, right? Otherwise, it's a finite segment. You can do, I'm starting to get confused, but I think you can do circles and lines with the same thing. Like when you do like spatial inversion, you can definitely do circle, like the inverse of a line is a circle. I just don't remember if conformal space gives you that. That's not a thing that I've done very much of, but that's like an example. Another example, let's just say you want to do physics and do like some space-time stuff, right? That's another example. Are you using higher dimension geometric calculations in game programming? Well, usually we use quaternions to do rotations, and those are four-dimensional. That's the most common thing. Also homogeneous coordinates are four-dimensional, but we don't really think of the extra one as a dimension that much. It's more like, it's like a mathematical convenience that we don't use spatially very much. But that's not true for quaternions. Quaternions, we use the whole space, or half the space. Homogeneous coordinates will only use four dimensions. Why don't you use letters then? Because this form of math is supposed to go to as many dimensions as you want. That's the point. So you could decide to use letters, but like you're kind of doing a special case. And why would you do that? Also, there's things, if you remember, when you multiply these together, the order matters. So if you multiply E3 times E2, that's minus E2 times E3, right? And if they're numbers, it's very easy to think about that, right? Or actually, you know, and whether it's minus or not is based on the parity of how far the numbers are apart. So I think. No, it's actually, never mind. But what happens is minuses can cancel each other out when you have products of more than 2 dimensions, right? And thinking about that is just simpler when they're numbers, I think. It's just easier. You've been confused trying to write a quaternion look-at function and feeling really dumb now. I wrote an article that tells you how to do that. I think. I mean, it'll probably tell you. So on this page, God, these colors are really ugly in the modern day. This. Maybe this one. No. This one. So here I did some inverse kinematics. With quaternions. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't totally. I do it somewhere. I talk about it in here somewhere. Okay, so basically, here's the thing. I think I do talk about it in this joint limits one. Because, yeah, okay. You want to read this part about rotation decomposition because, so a look at for quaternions is basically 2 things, right? You want to know what direction should the quaternion point in the end, right? And then what angle around that direction. Those are your two sort of, I mean, the direction is multiple degrees of freedom, but we'll just say 2 degrees of freedom for now, right? And so you can factor a quaternion to be that, to be the vector part and then the rotation part. And I talk about that here. And that's what this IK thing does. So this simple function, that's the code of it is in here, is the simple rotation. It gives you the quaternion that maps A onto B, but not including the twist angle around the target, right? This is only what is the minimum energy way if you're pointing this way to start pointing that way, right? So you can see how that's the majority of what you want to do for a look-at transform is point the right way, and then you multiply on how much rotation you need to make the up vector be what you want it to be, and I sort of talk about that up here. Anyway, were those colors somehow not really ugly in the olden days? I mean, monitors are brighter today than they used to be. So these are like really bright pastel colors now. Maybe it's also the brightness of my monitor is turned way up. They're less ugly if they're darker. Let's put it that way. Standards for web visuals were much lower back in the day. You're still scared of quaternions? Yeah, they're not so bad if you play with them. Or should have become a web developer? Yeah, totally. Just needs an animated under construction sign. That is correct. Okay, back to that was our math talk for the day. Now we are back to programming. Okay. We're doing editor stuff. You know what? Let's make sure the game runs. We won't do a full Benny test yet because what we're doing is pretty innocuous. We'll do the editor stuff and then do a check-in. Okay, so we still, we still run. Okay, so just going to keep doing what we were doing. Init proximity grid. Default ocean particles. That is definitely about the ocean. It is a little bit rough. This is settings. Okay. This is a little bit messy because we're not using that barrier info. Let's use it. Let's use it. I don't know if we need both that and settings. I don't think so. Yeah, okay, that's fine. We're being consistent. And then instead of using the sun ID, we're going to say we'll get rid of this. Okay. You know what? Like, let's just use that instead of a using. Undeclared identifier. Okay, right. That is a very misleading error message that we should fix at some point. Did I fix the ocean weirdness from yesterday? Yeah, we fixed that before the stream ended. Okay. So then these commands, some of them might be old. Okay, this creates an ocean. This is going to be settings. Ocean init. That's fine. Camera nav. This is settings. scrub. Scrub was a utility command. But okay. Scrub coordinates. We didn't even use this. Probably was copied from a different function. Let's make sure we still compile. Nope. Oh yeah. Salvage proximity grids. This is pretty old. I'm going to make that not appear in the search. Okay, well, that's fine. Didn't even use this one. Manipulate ocean. This is about the ocean. Okay. This is going to be add default settings. I think that's it. I think the next step is to make the settings entity and move a bunch of stuff over. What I could do now, I certainly could make the settings entity and just have it be there and not use it until tomorrow night and not run the conversion. I can write the conversion and test it on a level and just not run it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the plan. So we're going to check in. We're going to run a Benny test before we check in. What's the average line of code for a commit? I have no idea. The camera is bad at focusing on the right thing. I might have, like, the problem is, it might reset the autofocus every time I turn it off. Let me see. I don't know. It claims it's still doing the same thing as yesterday. So if it's not focusing, I don't know what to say. Just set focus to manual? Yeah, I should probably do that because it doesn't move. Have I given thought to getting some lighting? Yeah, dude, I'm just busy, man. And everything in California is fucking closed. I can't do anything here. I tried to go to the camera store, they're closed. It's illegal to do anything in California. That's why I'm leaving California again as soon as my laptop gets here. LLVM 20 7 seconds. It's a release build. It's optimizing. And yes, LLVM is slow. Like, don't complain if you haven't been following along about what's going on. All right. Turn on the key light monitor. Well, I'm using the key light monitor to read chat right now, so I could do that, but or we could put some good key light on this monitor. Let's see. Can have frontal. How's that? Is that lighter? Okay. Well, this is kind of running. We're just gonna make sure it goes. That's all. It's still going. Real streamers have the rooms decked out in RGB lights. Yeah, I know. I'm not a real pro. Do you call a third-party assembler? No, we output the bytes for the machine code. You don't want your compiler to generate assembly code and then assemble that because that takes time. Like, you just want to output the code. It is the most direct thing. There's no sound of the... Yeah, I know. The audio people ruined the Benny test, man. Thanks for the recommendation to check out conformal geometric algebra. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. There's also, if you really want to get into it, there's a Discord where you can talk to people about this. It is this one. I don't know how you get the server address, but this is a place where people chat about geometric algebra. It's somebody else's server, though. It's not mine. I guess people figured out how to find it. Okay, well, I guess you search for the name. Is that all you do? It was right there. Right where? Here? Anyway, please don't spam them. Please just have intelligent conversations. All right? Now I feel bad. People are going to be like, what the hell? Oh, it's invite people. Well, I don't want to invite people to a random other person's server. That seems rude. You're just dying for anywhere online where there's good, serious discussion going on. I know the feeling, man. It's kind of hard to find sometimes. It's like we're just progressively becoming dumber. There are just more and more JavaScript programmers. I don't mean about programming. I mean about everything. Like the internet is just so stupid now. It didn't used to be. The internet used to be a place for smart people to hang out. Imagine that. Imagine that the internet was a place where smart people talk to each other. That used to be what it was. What would I have you do? I don't know. I'm not suggesting any solution. I'm just saying it is what it is. What am I eating? Chocolate bar. I mean, Trump said some stupid stuff, but he didn't say inject bleach into your bloodstream. That again, the fact that everybody thinks he said that is that's internet stupidity, honestly. I mean, what he was saying there was not particularly intelligent, but he wasn't saying inject random chemicals. Go back and watch that video without being primed about what he's supposedly saying, and listen to the words he actually says. And you know that it's clear that what he's talking about is just, he's trying to say, again, some relatively vapid political crap, but about, we're just going to try these different kinds of approaches because we might find a solution, right? He's trying to, like, you know, yeah, people heard what they wanted to hear. That's exactly right. You saw the entire thing. I hate to say this, but you need to upgrade your comprehension skills. I saw the entire thing also. It is hyperbole, but this was essentially what his words implicated. No, it's not. No, it's not. I'm not going to get into this argument. Like, it's one of those cases where definitely it was a little weird because you could see how what he was saying could be taken to mean that a little bit if you stretched it implausibly. And so then everybody stretched it implausibly. And rather than listening to what he was actually trying to say, which admittedly was not well said, they just decided to make him say whatever they could make the most noise about. And again, it's just internet stupidity. Internet stupidity over and over. Uh-oh, camera. I probably... Uh-oh, I might have broken it. Like, I moved the computer and... Let's see. I moved the computer and it, like, bent the HDMI cable. Okay, it's back. Because that cable is kind of trashed, honestly. Oh, my mouse now is not a lot. Oh, there it is. All right. Well, the camera image is back, but I am not on it. It is an empty chair right now, so... Let me try. There we go. There we go. I'm learning the OBS tricks. Am I a proponent of big desks? I tend to have pretty wide desks, but then I fill them up with stuff that just collects in the corners. So I don't know. Stop injecting bleach in the camera. Yeah. What programming language is this? This is a new programming language that is under development. Under development. Okay, so... Oh, somebody... I was mentioning how these images were too dim, and I think somebody modified them. Or maybe it's more like they're dim on the... Oh, nope, somebody modified them. Cool. All right. Etc. Etc. etc., etc., etc. Okay. Well, let's see how our logs went. I can just probably check the scroll back. Maybe not. No, maybe. 61, which is about what we expect. So good. I mean, we'd rather have less than 61, but okay. So we're going to commit a bunch of changes related to ocean refactoring. Boom. Okay. So now we're going to make a settings entity. We're just going to not use it yet. We're going to say settings is a struct, and it's version 1. It's going to have a grid like. It's not going to have ocean values. It is going to have fog stuff. Oh, we got to delete the versions off these. It's going to have fog stuff. We store breadcrumbs. All right. Why didn't I see that? Does that exist anymore? Okay, that... Oh, it's deprecated anyway, because I didn't see that when I did my entity flush. Okay. Fog present, do spotlight. Let's just copy everything and then we'll delete the things that we're not going to use. Okay, camera, outro. Look at all the stuff that was just on the ocean map entity because I just decided that that was the thing. I mean, I think that's everything. So we just want to delete all the versions because these are all going to be present in version 1. Whoops. Hold on, I got overzealous. Okay. So these are fine. These ones down here that say PID, I don't want to mess with that. Is that really not used? Call lights by Z. Not used anymore. All right, so bam. And then we can make a command that makes a settings entity for a given level. And what it'll do is it will we have this function called coerce that turns one entity type into another. So we just exactly want to do that. It'll just assign things. Hopefully it'll copy the fog values correctly or whatever. We'll see. And then we'll make that, and then it'll delete the ocean map if the ocean map was invisible. And then we'll just try that on some levels. It's this settings entity is not actually used by the engine yet. We're just going to make the thing that copies the fields over. And then on tomorrow night's stream, we'll actually do the thing that runs that on everything and throw the switch. It's going to be weird, like, yeah, it's going to be weird throwing the switch, because it's like, I guess I'll do it to one level and try to modify the code, because, I mean, I guess we throw the switch for everything and hope we didn't do it wrong. And we can always revert all the levels if we did it wrong, and then we make the code use the new entity type and see if it works. It'll be interesting. It's crazy you can keep the whole code base in your head. Well, I mean, there are some parts that you remember more and some parts that you remember less, right? It's, you know, it's fine. Did that level with the missing assets get fixed? I believe so. Yeah. No, colon doesn't mean types. The first colon means it's a declaration. The second colon means it's constant. There's no special syntax for types. Types are just like anything else. Why are some things aligned on colons and some not? Well, because I do that manually, and I'm not very consistent about it, and sometimes I care and sometimes I don't care. Like if I bothered to put something in Emacs that would align by colons, which once upon a time, decades ago, I would have done, then I'd probably do it more often. But because I do it manually, I just kind of don't totally bother. Have I talked about using? Yeah, there's entire YouTube videos demoing using. You can find them on the thing. Okay. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were going to make a command that now, did we test this? Yeah, okay, we build. So we're going to make a command that just says command make settings, and we're going to get open worlds. Well, okay, this is stupid. You can't dereference that. Okay. Fuck off. Who wrote this? Never mind, I know the answer to that. So, what is this even doing? Moves the camera to a given entity, accepts entity AM. All right. Okay, so we're going to say ocean is find ocean or get ocean map. We're going to say settings is a settings If there's no ocean map, we're going to say settings is make manager settings at the origin, right? Well, otherwise, so do we use coerce in here? Oh, we have a coerce command already. Great. Settings is coerce single entity ocean to settings type info settings. That probably returns an entity. Let's see. Yeah. So we will go down this settings. I could make a version that returns. It's just this is made to go at runtime, so it returns an entity. If I could make a version that knows the type, just not doing that right now. Okay. So we do that, and then let's just say so if we already have a settings entity in the world, then we don't do any of this. Otherwise, we get the ocean map. We say coerce ocean to settings, which will copy all the fields. Otherwise, that. And then we save the entity. Then we make, we want to set the mesh. I guess. Default mesh. We're just going to pick one of these and we'll change it later. We'll change it later. Oh yeah. Since I'm adding an, what is going on with this indentation? Since I'm adding an entity type, we have other things that we could do about this too. Okay. Actually, we'll use something that's obviously not going to confuse people into thinking it's a gameplay object. All right. Like there's stuff. There's like stuff about are things intangible and on what screens do they appear? So like here we do stuff. Okay. All right, file name. Do I always get it from the level name here? I mean, it's fine, but yeah, interesting. Well, we'll see how it goes. All right. Oh, we didn't do the thing where we delete the ocean map if we don't need it. So this level looks like it has an ocean, but it doesn't actually. It's got fake ocean. It has an ocean map, but the ocean map is flagged as invisible, which means it's not actually used for anything. Or, I mean, maybe I should check grid.ocean. Oh, God. Yeah, I should check grid.ocean present. Anyway, did we call this make settings? Oh, I didn't flag this as registered command. So it's not a command, everybody. Ocean map. Oops. Take me by the hap. So, okay, it didn't register the entity. We definitely want to do that. It may have saved it. Yes, it did. 16.8. We're going to revert this because we want it all to work. And then we have to delete it because that's just how this goes. All right, so I'm going to do this again, but we're going to register entity. I don't think we need to actually do this yet. Like for now, it's fine. We can just inspect it in the editor and not put the disk file. Disk file. All right. Undo doesn't know about this entity type, I guess. Let's see. Oh, it's complaining that I'm not doing things correctly. Whoops. I guess we'll run this in the debugger so we could see if some shenanigans are happening. Oh, we actually don't want to do this. We want to go, we have a thing called make default Did we check in before? Yeah, probably. Make default, where was it? Make default settings. Default. Add defaults. That's why I couldn't find it. Add default settings. All right. Is it possible to construct a table at compile time and place it in the static segment of the executable? So it will be. Right now, we only really, like if you wanted to do that right now, you would generate the text and just add that string of text to your program, right, of like a global array or whatever, which is a little bit inconvenient and a little bit messy. You would rather just fill out the array. The reason we don't do that yet is just because when compile time execution happens, every time we run a new compile time execution, we reset the global data because, well, if you don't do that, you may get really unexpected things happening. So we don't let random compile time values persist into or random compile time execution global state persist into runtime. However, we could let you mark an array and say, look, this array, however it gets computed at compile time, just keep those values, right? And then that would be simpler than making a string. We just haven't added that feature yet. But it's definitely on the roadmap. It's just a lower priority than some of this other stuff. Okay. Now what? I'm starting to get tired, but I think we can push through to the, well, we had a little, the undo system not liking us, which was not great. That might be due to the undo system having a little bit of standard stuff for the ocean map. Anyway, let's, I'm going to no check in this, right? Because we're going to make a version of this that is exactly the same. And this is going to be the real version, and it's going to return a settings. That's why I wondered if we were checking in, because so we make a settings, but then we initialize, we fill it out. Like the undo system could be freaking out because this isn't like who frickin' knows. Okay, so equals add default settings manager. Anyway, this is better because it sizes it based on what's already in the level. It probably will still complain. Oh, add default settings. Oh. Okay. Init size. That also, wow. Init size is an ocean. Wait, what? Ocean. Blah. Okay. We're probably going to have a thing called settings. I'm going to put this in camera now because I'm stupid. So this is going to be for settings. We don't care. This isn't going to have ocean values. It is going to have fog values. So we just get rid of some of this stuff. And there we go. All right. Did I ever find a way to randomize compilation for testing the compiler? Yes. I did do a better version of that, and it's been very helpful. In fact, since I did that, I haven't really gone and fixed all the bugs that it revealed. But it's been very nice. Okay. Yeah, so that's still complaining. So let's try, before I get too tired, let's try and figure out why it's complaining. It's probably something stupid. All right. So, I mean, it's in create old entity, and it's mad that there isn't one. So this is just like, you know, when we add something, we're supposed to create an old entity for it. And I don't know why that's not happening. Let me just look again at, we had our coerce command. We say coerce single entity. We register entity. We create it. Okay, make settings. Register entity. Actually, this whole file name thing we don't need here. Register entity. We're not destroying the old one, but that shouldn't matter. We note change, we call recreate, probably doesn't matter. I mean, maybe coerce crashes right now. We could try it. I'm not really calling undo for it. Let's just go to undo for a second. Under what conditions do we create old entity? When we have a pending action for creation or destruction. Undo mark beginning, which we don't do, and when we undo. So note ECD. That is not really, that's what we're not really doing. But we shouldn't have to, because somebody should be doing that. Note ECD. Note ECD. That's being called by undo note created. Undo note created entity. Okay, so this is this big thing, register entity that we edited. Undo note created, well, we definitely do that in register entity, which we are calling. So we're going to put a breakpoint there and see what's up. All right. We're going to restart. Take a look. Do I notice that the food I eat has any effect on how much energy I have? Yes, it definitely does. Definitely. What am I doing? But also many other things do as well. What am I doing here? I am saying make settings, and we're going to hit our breakpoint. So we go to register entity. Fine. Go to, what? Fucking. I don't know if that's remedy or if our code is doing something weird. All right. Make settings. Let's just make a breakpoint in register entity. All right. Okay, so we are in make settings, we're in register entity. Great. This is just stepping us through all of this frickin' stuff. Great. Why is can C set to true? What? is a set. What? Oh. If we're in the editor, okay, can C equals true. Duh. Okay, so that's fine. Undo note created entity. Okay, for some reason, we used to totally... So this is what we're doing that's different. This had an ocean map exception. And now we're not having it. But I don't know why that generated the problem that we see. Oh, should ignore entity. We are making a creation or destruction. It's got an entity ID. So we have a pending action. Oh, I didn't read the code correctly. It's that we do have an old... See, you've got to debug the right thing. It's that we already did make an old entity. Okay. So what happened was, remember when I said, let's just coerce the thing? When you do that, it copies the entity ID because the expected use case for that is to delete the old entity. So now we have an ocean map and a settings that have the same entity ID, which is a no-no. And so then when the undo system goes and says, hey, where's the old entity for this setting so I can diff it, it looks in its table and it finds the ocean map, which is not good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to clone the thing. Clone is ocean clone is clone manager ocean, and then ocean clone. Oh, you know what? We could just actually, does coerce single entity? Maybe it even has an option for this. No, it doesn't. All right. Okay. So now this still doesn't do the thing about maybe deleting the old one and stuff, but that's separate. First time watching a programming stream. What is up? What is up? Okay. Make settings. Bam. Hey, we didn't complain. Except we didn't assign an entity. I thought assign entity ID. Get new entity. I want to use a user ID besides gameplay. What do we do here? See, this was what I was, get new entity. I don't remember. It's been so long since I've done this. I don't remember the best way to do it. Like when we have an instantiate button in the editor. Although that I thought we would have a paste function. Like a okay, paste modify. Recreate, clone items. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Here we say, okay, we just say manager.current user ID. All right. Okay. That's easy enough. See, if I had remembered that, I wouldn't have had to search around for 10 minutes. What program am I using to search? It's a program called beargrep. 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 All right. Make settings. There, now it's got an actual entity ID. We should be able to go to settings and select it. And it looks like a default one, although, I mean, the ocean map might be default for all I frickin' know. Maybe we need to go to a more interesting level. Oh, yeah, this is all default. We should see, we're also cloning the mesh, and we don't want to do that. What was it called? Set default mesh. All right. Let's find a more interesting level, like what's short to type? Oh, I could do this one. Whatever, man. This one has an actual ocean entity. And if this actually has some setting, not that many. Okay, not that many. Level Ikaruga. Here we go. It's got It's got my name set as designer and whoever. I don't know why it says and whoever. And it's got a time per skip set. It's got a grid set. Okay. So make settings. All right. So now we look at settings, select all. Grid, time per skip, designers. So we cloned the entity correctly. Okay. That is most of what we want to do. I'm not going to do the rest of it right now. The next parts are going to be maybe deleting the ocean if it's not actually in use, and then looping over all the levels in doing this, and actually using the settings. It's going to be a little ugly. Let's actually check this in, though. I have this no check-in somewhere. We're not going to have it be a no check-in. We're just going to remind ourselves. Delete this after settings entity changeover exclamation point. Okay. Okay. Where's my to-do list? Oh, I spelled Sokoban wrong, that's why I can't find it. Okay, we're just going to put that at the top. We're not going to forget that. So let's run the Benny test again, just to make sure we didn't break anything real bad. Nothing should be any different. We added this new entity type, but it doesn't exist. Like, no levels have it, so it shouldn't matter. And we're going to check that in, and then next time we will start using it. Here, there we go, optimized build. So we are gonna crank. We're cranking. All right. How's it going, everybody? Any final on-topic questions before we end the stream for the night? What does PID mean? It means that that field is an entity ID. Why is it called PID? It's historical reasons. That means, for example, that we format it in a certain way when we draw it, or parse it in a certain way when you type it into the text field. It means that if you right-click on that field in the editor, then we'll select that entity, right? So, you know, it's just a little bit of extra stuff. So there's other tags that are like that you can put on fields. So for example, you could have a vector 3 or a vector 4, but tag it as a color, and that means we'll draw it as a color in the editor and open the color picker when you click on it, and that kind of thing. Yes, that stuff does reach runtime. That is exactly how it works. Basically, whenever you see a note with an @ sign like that, it's there so that you can look at those structs at runtime and do stuff with them. I mean, it doesn't actually have to be at runtime. You can also see that information at compile time. But I would say the most common use is to look at those things at runtime. You think it's Twitch or me? Well, that makes me sad, but okay. You have no buffering? Well, good. Good. Oh, that level looked cool. Whichever one that was. That was new. How did you design the storage for that information? It's basically just an array. So you can get, for any struct in the code, or actually for any declaration in the code, right? Which, struct members are declarations of the individual members. There's just an array of notes. And right now, each individual note is a string, but it's likely we will change it to something more structured ultimately. This game's going to be so cool when it's done, man. It's already kind of cool, but it's still at that stage of development. It's like not playable yet. It's the first game. Okay. Every game that I have worked on, including side projects, which is probably like 6 or 7 things, since I started Braid, was like playable in the first week. Like an actual playable game that you could sit down and play. This is the first game. This has been playable, but like not really. Because it's not, like you couldn't not know anything about the game and sit down and start playing it. You would just like be lost in all this stuff. And what we're working on right now is structuring it a little better, making it into more of like a packaged experience. And that's when it's going to start to get really nice. Will it be free? The game? No. The compiler? Yes. The source code for the engine? Yes. A demo game that shows you how to use the engine? Yes. But the actual full game is going to be for sale because we don't want to go out of business. Am I still working on the 20-year Game 3? Yes, this is all of this that I'm doing right now is part of the Game 3 project. The reason we are doing this game right now is because Game 3 can use this engine when it's done. And yeah, that's the main reason. Will it have a 1-hour puzzle for tradition? I mean, this isn't really a timed game, However, I did make a level that's really big. Game 3 is VR, though. Game 3 is not VR. Who knows? We might do a VR mode for it eventually, but it is a traditional game currently. So the Sokoban thing is just a side dish? No, it's a full game. It's just sometimes you make a full game on your way to make another full game. You know what I mean? Yeah, Sokoban is like game 4 or 5 or something. Honestly, Sokoban is like games 4 through 8 because it's so huge and incorporates so many things. Guess you could make a puzzle that requires you to automate it or something. Okay. A friend of mine, Chris Moore at the Santa Fe Institute, for some reason he wanted to do this. He started playing around with Sokoban level designs, and he made a level that is basically a binary counter. So you have to like flip these certain blocks up and down to go through it. And you have to flip the first block twice to flip the second block, and the second block twice to flip the third block. So it's like 2 to the n, right? And so you could make people, if there's 8 blocks, you can make them loop 256 times. Or more. And maybe we'll put that in the game just to be obnoxious. I don't know. I don't know if we would be that silly, but so fun back end. It would be a good Easter egg. I don't think like super punishing nastiness is necessarily the best Easter egg, but what do I know? We could do something funny where it's like we do an intro level that's like 8, and then we do another one that's like 16 just to be obnoxious, so that you get the pattern. And then we do one that's like 65,536, but there's actually a way to exploit it and get to the end by breaking it in some way. That would be fun. That would be a good level. It's just the question is, what is a good way? Like you can imagine that you get into the main section of the puzzle somehow, and like maybe the way that you get in doesn't seem exploitable, and it isn't in the earlier puzzles, but it is in that one because like there's a 1 block difference in how things are set up, you know? Something like that. Make a level where the map is invisible. Yeah, that's not really what this game is about. Can't wait till this Benny test is done. Is Oswin going to make it into this game? I have a feeling that he will if he's not in there already. What exactly is this game about? I don't want to say everything. I know what it's about. That level had such thick fog it never finished fading back in. 62, that's about right. Okay. I should actually, I'm going to record this because we definitely have this thing where some levels reproduce sometimes and not other times. And I want to figure out why. So I'm going to record this, and then next time we get a 61, wow. I did a lot of Sudokus after this interview today, and the combination of those has made me very tired. All right. Added settings entity in preparation for weekend changeover. All right. Bam. All right, so we'll do that stream tomorrow night probably. where we finish this, and that'll be nice. You thought I didn't like Sudokus? No, but I explained today during the interview why I was playing them, so you can go check that out. Do I ever do nonogram puzzles, also known as Picross? I played like Picross on the Nintendo DS for a bit, and you know, it was a cool thing to play, but it's like not that deep, you know. Why don't you save the previous run of the Benny test and show the difference after the next run? Because we just shouldn't have this many fails. Like, I'm not going to do work to optimize for this case that we shouldn't be in. That's like the wrong attitude. What's the difference between Alan Kay's version of OOP? There's an explanation on the internet that he gives. I'd rather you read that than me put words in his mouth. Where can you see the interview? It is not on YouTube yet, I don't think. Unless she posted an early video, but I don't think so. If you want to, I bet the Twitch VOD is up. Let me see. I could link you to that, but a higher quality video is going to go up later. Let's see. Videos. This looks familiar. Okay, so if you go here, which I'll paste in the chat, then I guess it's the last thing that happened. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, hopefully that's just an internet problem.
Yes.
Why am I not saying anything?
So there's it's a very simple meditation, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
In fact, if there's anything that I've learned...
Yeah, the audio is kind of desynced.
People don't get what I get out of these things, you know? So it's hard to make it a recommendation for that.
No.
We're going to have to work on audio sync. It's off right now, isn't it?
Any non-fiction books, maybe?
I bet it's 150.
It's actually really pretty good. I mean, you have to filter out about a quarter of it because it's too verbose.
How,
What happened, right? Like, why is...
I think we need to add more latency. I don't know. Anyway.
How things unfold improvisationally when you're in a certain situation. And so if you get...
Okay. Anyway. So and I was complaining that chat was confused. Yeah, well, I've never yeah. That one was especially weird because we had definitely internet problems and that could have thrown it off as well. So I want to do, I mean, if I just do a local recording with no network involved, I can see if the audio is synced. Assuming that OBS does that delay for recordings, which it should. Actually, I gave her the recording. Let me, we can check it out. It's right here.
Did you do the new tweet?
Like what?
Oh, that's a bad...
Thank you, Microsoft, for this experience.
You just say, we're doing this
Look.
now. It's
Okay,
starting
great.
now.
Thank you,
I
Microsoft.
think it's when you run, it's called the runner's file or something like that.
Sure.
You all of a sudden get into this entirely different mode. You mentioned meditating. Do you
Yeah.
meditate?
But
This-
damn, because that's...
This seems pretty close.
Dreams and whatever, as a wonder of the world.
That might be very slightly off, but not by much. And that was me recording in OBS. Oh, okay, guys, here's what's going on is we were using Discord, which doesn't have the delay set for that stream. Oh, you want to see cat.mp4? This is a video that I made today. Hold on. That's not the correct video. Okay, this is the original video.
You working out? Oh, good girl. That's good work.
That came off the internet somewhere, and we made a modified version. This was... Where'd it go? Anyway, I messed around and made a captioned version of that, but I don't know where the file is. All right, thanks everybody for coming by. I'm going to bed. Going to bed. See you later.